Now, tell me what he did to your car.
When he got there, he opened the car door. I thought he was going to hit me.
Nope.
Hit my windshield.
I didn't do that either.
He was out of control.
Did you put your hands on the car?
On the handle, yes.
You have no right.
This is Judy Justice. Wanda Lucero is suing her niece's former landlord, Lawrence Block, for property damage and pain and suffering.
Court come to order.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case 3011, Lucero versus Block.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Miss Lucero, this is your sister,
Yes.
and she has a daughter.
Yes.
Her daughter is challenged.
Yes.
She and your daughter, according to what I read, were living together. And there came a time when your sister decided that it was best for her to go into a senior community,
That's correct.
leaving her daughter to find another place to live. When was that?
In March of 22.
Have you always been involved with the care of both your sister and her daughter?
More recently or more actively in the past year.
How old is your niece?
38.
So you started to look for a facility for her, someplace. Referred by whom to the defendant's group home?
Well, it turned out my daughter had paid for her another month's rent at where they were living so we could figure out what we were going to do. And the owner of that place told her she wanted her out now. So she was actually homeless for a week.
You mean your niece?
Yes. And it turned out she got an infection and she had to go to the hospital. And so when she got discharged from the hospital, they're the ones that found his organ.
So the social worker at the hospital was
Correct.
instrumental in finding the defendant's facility.
Yes.
Your lawsuit is alleging that you had to, because of circumstances which you will tell me about, take her out of the defendant's group home. It is a group home, I assume, sir?
Yeah.
And you had to do that relatively quickly, and there was some sort of a kerfuffle with the defendant where he scratched your car, destroyed some of the property that your niece had. Mr. Block, in his answer, has a whole different scenario, which he's going to tell me about. On what date, Mr. Block, did the plaintiff's niece come to live in your group home?
I am
You don't
not
know.
sure on the date.
You don't know. On what date?
March 14th of 2022.
I want you to describe the group home that you run, Mr.
Anywhere from 8 to 10 at most times. It's for psychological
8
disabled.
to 10.
Yes.
Okay. And describe the house. Give me the address.
It's San Bernardino, California, 92404.
Okay, Sarah, you look that up for me, please.
Sure.
And are you registered or licensed with the state?
With the city.
With the city of San Bernardino?
I'm a room and board.
I'll ask questions.
Okay.
You give me answers.
Yeah. Yes, Your Honor.
The answer is you're licensed by the city
Correct.
as what?
As room for rent.
Just a room for rent.
That's the only qualification.
Just don't tell me what the only qualification is. You're licensed by the city to rent rooms in this house.
Correct.
Now, the plaintiff was referred to your boarding house, because it's not a facility, it's a boarding house, by the hospital. Do you know how the hospital got the name of your boarding house? Did you,
Yes.
you give it to the hospital?
The county collects a list of room and boards.
Of boarding houses.
Yes.
And how many rooms are you permitted to rent in your house?
5.
It's a 5-bed, 2-bath, 2,000 square feet. I have photos if you want to see.
Do you also...
Yeah, a house manager and residents.
A house manager.
Yes.
Is the manager also a tenant?
Yes. It's on-grounds manager 24 hours.
Okay, so you have somebody who's a resident who rents a room from you and who acts as the manager of the property.
Correct.
Okay. How much was the rent you were paying?
Well, it varied. It started out at like $750
And your niece shared a room with someone?
yes,
With the manager.
in the end.
Just a sec. Well, that's... Okay, she shared a room with somebody.
Correct.
Now, Ms. Lucerno, according to what I read, you tried to keep close tabs on your niece, and you went to pick her up, and there was something that happened that was disturbing. When was that?
On November 30th, I went over there. She had doctor's appointments that day, so I went to pick her up, and before we left her bedroom, she opened her purse and flung some undergarments to the house manager whom she shared the room with. So when we got in the car, I asked her, I said, Liz, what are you doing with her undergarments in your bag? And she said, well, we had been to Walmart and she asked me to put them in there. And I'm like, so you stole them? And she goes, I don't know. I go, yeah, she had you steal them. So that was the straw. There was a lot of other things that went on throughout her stay there.
To remove her property
Yes,
that day.
yes.
And describe to me what time you went there and what happened.
I would say around 3, maybe.
Had you notified anyone that you were taking your niece out of the residence?
No.
Okay, so it was about 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And
So we went in there. I had hefty bags. We bagged up all her belongings. And then,
was her roommate there?
yes,
So the house manager was there?
yes.
Okay. Did the house manager call you and let you know on that day that she was moving out? Yes.
Yes.
Of course. Okay. And where were you, by the way, when she called you?
I was at a community hospital interviewing a potential new client.
Okay. So how far away were you from the house when you got the call from the house manager?
Just driving distance or?
Traveling distance.
Traveling distance would be about half hour.
Okay. Now, took you a half hour to get back to the property. Did you come directly back to the property?
I finished my interview, then did, yes.
How long did that take?
It was about an additional 15 to 20 minutes with the interview.
So maybe 45 minutes later, you showed up at the house.
I would say an hour.
So when you showed up at the house, what was the purpose of coming to the house?
Well, there was an issue skipped in between that. Before I came to the house, I had gotten a call from my son. He's doing an errand for me at the house.
Stand up. Over here.
It was both ways. She was arguing and yelling and using profanity with as well. It was a back and forth. It wasn't a one-way situation like that. And eventually I did break it off. And at that point is when I figured out how to get his car out of there.
I'm gonna look at the video.
Wanda Lucero claims her niece's former landlord, Lawrence Block, owes for property damage and pain and suffering.
You called your father and said someone was blocking you in?
Yes, they, with their vehicle, they had blocked the driveway.
Okay. Were they loading property?
No.
What were they doing?
They expressly went to block me into the driveway.
Really?
Yes.
They were trying to get away. Why would they stand there and do nothing
was
and block you from...
demanding-
Don't speak.
Yes, ma'am.
Why would they just block you, sir, if what they were trying to do is get the property and leave? Why would they block you? Can you figure that out?
Yes, if I may. They saw that I was not a normal resident and assumed that I had something to do with the management of the property and were insisting that I let...
Just a second. The plaintiff was asking you to let her into the garage?
Yes.
Did you say, why do you want to go into the garage?
No.
Did she tell you there was a piece of property there that belonged to her niece?
I wasn't listening to her.
What do you mean you weren't listening? What were you doing?
He's not involved in the property.
Would you be quiet?
Yes, Your Honor.
Your witness.
Yes,
You
Your
brought him here. So you weren't listening as to what she said to you?
Yes.
Why?
I have no pertinence to the
Sit
things
down.
going on.
Sit down. Anyway, you got there, and there was a kerfuffle when you got there. So now he's gone. Did you finally let him out?
Nope.
Were you blocking his car?
Yes, I was.
Tell me why.
Well, my
Video
niece,
of it,
I'm
too.
not speaking to you. You have to understand.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
You have to understand. I've been involved in your kind of businesses, not personally, but have had involvement with those businesses for a very, very long time.
They do have a bad reputation.
They sure do. And if something like that smells, which you say it has a bad reputation, if you're involved in that bad stuff, smell sticks.
And I say one thing and
I'm not finished yet. I want to know why you blocked his son's car.
well, it's a clothes hamper and it had some random things in it.
Who put it in the garage?
I guess his house manager. The garage is off limits to the residents.
Do you know why?
I know
Why
he
is the
keeps.
garage off limits to residents, sir?
to secure food preparation items, because we room and board, so we provide the food as well. If we didn't have it in a a secured area, then it would be gone every week before we could make our meals. So we have to secure it in there. And it's also used for when residents move out to secure their items and put it in there so the other residents don't go through it, because they have a tendency, once they hear somebody's moving, to go through it and pillage everything.
So she's looking for her niece's hamper.
Yes, some items.
No, she's looking for her niece's hamper.
Okay.
Everything else was packed up in garbage bags. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the only thing that remained was the hamper.
Correct.
That you wanted to get. He shows up.
Hysterically.
Well, right now you're blocking his son in his car so he can't leave, whatever that means. Yeah. By the way, when she blocked your car in, did you go back into the house and call your father?
I remained outside. I called him inside of my car.
When you received the phone call from your son, I want you to tell me what he said to you.
He said some lady is yelling at me about getting into the garage, and then she parked behind. I'll be right there.
And when you came home to the house, tell me exactly what you saw.
Her dark utility vehicle at the end of the driveway blocking my son who was parked on the driveway.
And what did you do?
I was pretty fumed at that point. Somebody, involving my kid in something like that and holding him hostage of sorts. And so I was pretty irate. I started telling her, you got to move. This is illegal for you to be here. And she would argue back.
Just a second. Did she tell you, Mr. Block, that all she wanted was the hamper from the garage?
Yes.
Did you give it to her?
Not at that point.
Why?
At that point, all of her belongings wasn't at that same location.
No, listen to me, sir. Answer my question. She asked you for the hamper. There's no question she did. And she said it's in the garage. Why didn't you give it to her? Did you not give it to her because you were angry at that point?
Yes. I was arguing with her.
You were arguing?
I didn't want to cooperate with somebody who's holding my son hostage.
He wasn't hostage. He was in his car, and his father was there. Sit. So you were angry.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you knew that the plaintiff's niece is a challenged child.
Yes, all of our residents are.
And the scene that you made by not giving her the hammer.
It was both ways. She was arguing and yelling and using profanity as well. It was a back and forth. It wasn't a one-way situation like that. It was an ongoing argument between each other. And eventually I did break it off and disengage to go talk to my son. And at that point is when I figured out how to get his car out of there.
I'm going to look at the video. Did you bring me the video or did she?
I did.
I'd like to see it.
Genius human being.
Okay.
And by the way, the bag sitting in the back.
Absolutely brilliant.
Of the car is where I sat the bag.
Yeah, this is a good idea of justice. Blocking the driveway, calling the cops for no reason. Smart human being. Genius.
That was the entirety.
Who's taking the picture?
My son.
So he was outside his car.
At the moment, yeah.
Taking a photograph, hardly hostage. I want you to tell me what you did. Did you put your hands on the car?
No. Oh, yes.
Did you put your hands on the car?
On the handle, yes.
Well, that's the car. And did you open the door?
Yes.
Which door?
The front door.
Front driver's door.
Front drivers.
Who was in the driver's seat?
The plaintiff.
And what did you intend?
Again, not being completely rational, I was just trying to convince her to move. And
Nah, that doesn't convince her to move. That could scare you if you weren't being rational, going over and opening up her car door.
Okay.
Okay.
He grabbed my car door remote, slammed that door, hit my windshield, went to the back door. He had to have scratched it with this. And then, after he got his son's car out, he came head on at my car like he was gonna hit us head on.
Wanda Lucero has accused her niece's former landlord, Lawrence Block, of damaging their personal property. Lawrence claims Wanda threatened his son and escalated the situation.
Now, tell me what happened when he got there.
When he got there, he was cussing, calling me every name.
Got it. He was angry because you were blocking his son's car.
Right.
And he had to come back there because you were moving out. There's no question that he would have come back there because you were moving out anyway, because he got a call from his house manager / your niece's roommate who had her steal property from Walmart.
Yes.
I offered her the time to come back and get it at another location.
There's no available. All she wanted was the hamper from the garage.
I understand.
That's what she said she wanted. That's not, it's all over the place. That's
Okay.
not, all she wanted was the hamper from the garage. Everything else was there and packed. She was ready to go. She just wanted the hamper. He had no authority to give her the hamper or couldn't get into the garage. He didn't know how to get into the garage. Actually, I'm sure your son said to you, if you're a smart man, well, what do they want? And I assume he said to you, they want a hamper from the garage. I assume he said that to you, or he wasn't listening. That he wasn't listening to. Did he tell you that that's what they wanted?
Not that I recall.
Okay. So now tell me what he did to your car. He opens the car door.
Opened the car door. I thought he was going to hit me. My sister and niece were scared to death. They were hysterical. Let's go. He's going to kill us, you know, because he was out of control. And he grabbed my car door remote, slammed that door, hit my windshield, went to the back door. He had to have scratched it with this, opened that door, and threw her bags of belongings out in the street. And then, after he got his son's car out...
Well, how did he get the son's car out? He went up on the curb?
Yeah, and then he came head on at my car like he was going to hit us head on. Matter of fact, the son in the driveway...
Should have let him out.
Yeah.
Yeah. You should have let him out.
Yeah.
You have no right to block him in.
I know, but he should have let us in that garage.
Just a second. It's not his responsibility to let you in the garage. Let's understand each other. It's not his responsibility. He's not in charge of that house. If it was a hamper and clothes you were looking for, you'd be smart. You get your niece out of there.
Right.
You go to wherever you're going to take her, and then you make a communication. Listen, we left a hamper there. Either you get it or you don't get it. But blocking him in is not what you're legally able to do. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
That's why he got frustrated. There's no question about that. He handled it all wrong. You can't put your hands on her car. You can't take out the bags from the car. You can't run over them.
I did not run them over.
You can't scratch her car.
I didn't do that either.
Well, she's going to show me pictures, sir. And that's
Of a
what she's
scratch?
and that's what she's here for. She has to convince me that you damaged property and you took property without permission.
Well, as the video shows, the bags were not thrown or sprawled out or ran over as she's claiming either.
Oh, no, she didn't say sprawled out, sir.
said I threw
You
them.
touched somebody else's property, and you have no right to do that. You were angry. You have no right to touch her car, scare her physically. And if you, the bags of stuff, oh, there's no question in my mind that if you're angry and you grabbing them out of the car, you're not grabbing them out of the car and gently putting them down. Whatever. Show me the car's damage, please.
I did not throw them.
Yeah, all right. Good. Shouldn't be
shows.
taking care of challenged people in your house. Should get off every list. I know it's a business and I know people have to do it, not you. Okay. Damage to the car.
Right here.
Is this the damage? Is this the...
Crack, yeah. Yes.
Did you have it fixed?
Yes.
I'd like to see the bill for it.
Okay.
So is what you're telling me your out-of-pocket was $250?
Yes.
Okay, to fix your car was more money, but that was your deductible, $250.
Right.
Okay, so we have $250. What else?
He took my garage door opener, so I had to buy a new one.
How much was that?
$134.95.
I didn't touch a garage door opener.
Was $366.20 that I was in while my car was getting worked on.
Just a second, did your insurance pay for that? Yes, they had to.
yeah.
Yes, of course they did. Because if you had a $250 deductible on your car, then there's no question in my mind that you had
Right.
rental car. Okay, all right. $385, judgment for the plaintiff. Thank you very much. We're finished.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Court is adjourned.
That was no problem as far as her moving out. That's a normal part of the business. What was very upsetting was somebody involving my son and trapping him from being able to move.
Because what I wanted wouldn't have taken more than 30 seconds to get. I'm disabled, so I always look for the easiest route.
I do regret I was pretty fumed, but it was because, you know, that That Papa Bear part of me came out, and somebody was attacking my kid in my head, so
The way he was cussing and carrying on,
I wanted to go full force, and I went too far with verbalizing anyways.
just screen him good.
The atmosphere inside the courtroom was heavy with the quiet dignity of justice. The Honorable Judge Judy Shineland sat behind her bench, a figure of unwavering authority and sharp intellect. Before her stood Wanda Lucero, a woman whose face was etched with the weary lines of a lifelong caregiver, a woman who had dedicated her heart to protection of her family. A silent pillar of support, and in their thoughts was a 38-year-old woman named Liz, the niece whose vulnerability had sparked this legal battle. Across the aisle stood Lawrence Block, a man who viewed his boarding house in San Bernardino as a business, perhaps failing to see the human souls who resided within its 5 bedrooms. The bailiff called the court to order, and case number 3011 began. Wanda Lucero was seeking justice for property damage and the intangible weight of pain and suffering. Judge Judy looked at Wanda and asked her to tell the court what the defendant had done to her vehicle. Wanda took a deep breath and began to recount the chaotic afternoon when the boundaries of safety had been shattered. She explained that when Lawrence Block arrived at the property, he did not come with words of peace, but with a storm of anger. He opened the car door with such force that Wanda feared she would be struck. Instead of hitting her, his rage found a target in her windshield. Wanda testified that he was completely out of control. Lawrence Block quickly interjected, denying that it caused the damage, but Judge Judy silenced him with a sharp look. She wanted to know if he had put his hands on the car. Lawrence admitted that he had touched the handle, but he insisted that he had no other choice. Judge Judy reminded him that he had no right to touch someone else's property in such a manner. The story 2022. Wanda's sister had reached a point in her life where she needed to transition into a senior living community. This left her daughter, Liz, who faced significant psychological challenges, in need of a new home where she would be safe and cared for. For a brief and difficult week, Liz had been homeless after a previous landlord demanded she leave immediately. During this period, Liz suffered an infection that required hospitalization. It was the social workers at the hospital who had found Lawrence Block's facility and referred the family there. At the time, it seemed like a godsend, a secure environment for a woman who desperately needed stability. Wanda had always been actively involved in the care of both her sister and her niece, and she tried to keep a close watch on conditions at the new home. The house in San Bernardino was a 2,000-square-foot residence with 5 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. Lawrence Block explained to the court that he was licensed by the city as a room-for-rent establishment. He did not live there himself, but instead employed a house manager who was also a tenant. This manager was tasked with overseeing the 8 to 10 residents who lived there at any given time. Wanda paid a monthly rent that started at $750. However, the living arrangement was far from ideal. Liz was a situation that Wanda found increasingly disturbing. The tension reached a breaking point on November 30th. Wanda had gone to the house to pick up Liz for several doctor's appointments. As they were preparing to leave the bedroom, Wanda witnessed a shocking sight. Liz opened her purse and tossed several items of undergarments to the house manager. Once they were safely inside the car, Wanda asked her niece why she had someone else's clothing in her bag. Liz confessed that they had been to a Walmart store, and the manager had instructed her to put the items in her purse. Wanda realized with horror that her niece had been coerced into shoplifting. This was the final straw in a long line of concerns. Wanda decided that Liz could not stay in that environment for another hour. She returned to the house around 3 o'clock that afternoon to retrieve Liz's belongings. She did not notify the landlord in advance, as she felt the situation was an emergency. Wanda and her sister began bagging up Liz's life into large plastic bags. While they were working, Lawrence Block's son arrived to run an errand. In her haste and protective fury, Wanda parked her dark utility vehicle in a way that blocked the son's car in the driveway. The son, feeling trapped, called his father. Lawrence Block arrived shortly after, claiming that his son was being held hostage. But his actions described a man who had lost his rationality. Wanda explained that she only wanted one thing, a clothes hamper that was locked inside the garage. Lawrence Block refused to give it to her. He claimed that the garage was kept locked to secure food and supplies from the residents, whom he accused of having a tendency to pillage everything once they heard someone was moving out. The argument escalated into a shouting match filled with profanity. Lawrence admitted to court that he was fumed and irate. He went to Wanda's car, opened the driver's side door where she was sitting, and grabbed a garage door remote from her. Wanda testified that he then slammed the door, hit her windshield, and went to the back of the car where he threw Liz's bags of belongings into the street. She also claimed that he scratched the side of her vehicle. Lawrence denied the scratching and the throwing, but he did admit to opening her car door, an act that Judge Judy found to be frightening and irrational. The judge looked at the evidence, including a video captured by Lawrence's son. The video showed that the son was not a hostage. He was outside his car taking photographs. Judge Judy noted that Lawrence Block had no authority to touch Wanda's car or her property. She criticized the way he handled the situation, noting that if a resident was moving out, he should have facilitated the process instead of escalating the conflict. The judge earns his business. She found it outrageous that in the city of San Bernardino, a person could open a home to vulnerable, psychologically disabled individuals without any significant government oversight or specialized licensing beyond a simple room for a rent permit. She remarked that one needs a license to give a pedicure, yet this man was responsible for the lives and safety of 8 to 10 challenged adults with no checks and balances. After reviewing the repair bills and insurance documents, Judge Judy reached a decision. Wanda's insurance had covered the majority of the car repairs in the rental car, but she was still out of pocket for a $250 deductible. She also had to replace the garage door remote, which cost $134.95. Judge Judy awarded a judgment to Wanda Lucero in the amount of $385. As the session ended, Wanda felt a sense of relief, not just of money, but for the validation that her niece deserved better care. Lawrence Block, in a final statement, admitted he went too far with his verbalization, but still felt justified in his protective instincts. The case served as a poignant reminder of the need for better protection for the vulnerable members of society and the importance of thorough screening when choosing a care facility. Justice had been served, and a family could now move forward toward a safer and more was heavy with the scent of polished mahogany and the quiet hum of anticipation. This was a hall of Judy justice, a place where the tangled threads of human conflict were untangled by a sharp mind and a steady hand. On this particular day, the air felt charged with a story that was about more than just money or property. It was a story about family, vulnerability, and the unexpected ways that anger can shatter a quiet life. Wanda Lucero sat at the plaintiff's table, her back straight and her expression one of weary determination. Beside her sat her sister, a woman whose eyes reflected a lifetime of quiet struggle and deep love for her daughter, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, a challenged woman of 38 years, was the heart of the matter. Across the room stood Lawrence Block, a man who ran a boarding house in San Bernardino, California. He looked frustrated, his arms crossed as he waited for the proceedings to begin. The bailiff called the court to order with a voice that echoed against the high ceilings. Case number 3011, Lucero versus Block, was officially on the record. Judge Judy took her seat, her keen eyes scanning the papers before her. She looked at Wanda and then at her sister. She began by establishing the foundation of the case, noting that Wanda had been deeply involved in the care of both her sister and her niece until March of the year 2022, when it was decided that the mother should move into a senior community. This left Elizabeth in need of a safe and secure place to live. The path to Lawrence Block's boarding house had been a difficult one. Wanda explained to the court that Elizabeth had been effectively homeless for a week after a previous landlord demanded she leave immediately. During this time, the poor woman had contracted an infection and ended up in a hospital. It was a social worker at the hospital who had finally suggested the boarding house run by Lawrence Block. Wanda had hoped this would be a sanctuary. The boarding house was located at an address in San Bernardino, zip code 92404. It was a 5-bedroom, 2-bathroom house spanning 2,000 square feet. Lawrence Block informed the court that he was licensed by the city of San Bernardino as a room for rent establishment. He lived elsewhere, leaving a house manager on site 24 hours a day to look after the 8 to 10 residents, all of whom faced various psychological challenges. The rent was $750 a month. Elizabeth shared a room with the house manager, a woman who was supposed to provide guidance and stability. However, the promise of safety soon began to crumble. Wanda told the judge that she tried to keep close tabs on her niece, but on the 30th of November, Wanda had gone to pick up Elizabeth for a series of doctor appointments. As they were preparing to leave the bedroom, Elizabeth opened her purse and tossed some undergarments to the house manager. When they were safely in the car, Wanda asked her niece why she had the manager's clothes in her bag. The answer was chilling. Elizabeth claimed they had been to Walmart together, and the manager had asked her to put the items in her purse. Wanda, realizing that the person who was supposed to be a guardian had encouraged or challenged niece to steal. That was the final straw. Wanda decided right then and there to remove Elizabeth and all her belongings from the house. She returned around 3 o'clock that afternoon with large bags to pack up Elizabeth's life. While she was there, she realized that a laundry hamper filled with random items was missing. She suspected it was in the garage. The garage, however, was off limits. Lawrence Block explained to the court that the garage was kept locked to secure food and the belongings of former residents to prevent others from taking them. When Wanda arrived, Lawrence's son was at the house on an errand. In her frustration and desperation to get the last of her niece's things, Wanda used her vehicle to block the son's car in the driveway, refusing to let him leave until she was given access to the garage. When Lawrence Block received a call from his son saying he was being held in place he arrived in a state of fury. He saw Wanda's dark utility vehicle blocking the exit. To him, his son was being held hostage. The situation escalated rapidly. Lawrence admitted to the judge that he was not being rational. He approached Wanda's car and opened the driver's side door. Wanda recounted the fear she felt in that moment. She thought he was going to hit her. Her sister and Elizabeth were in the car, terrified and hysterical. Lawrence grabbed the car door remote and slammed the door with such force that it hit the windshield. He then went to the back door, where he allegedly scratched the car while opening it to throw Elizabeth's bags out onto the street. The courtroom was silent as the details of the confrontation were laid bare. Lawrence denied scratching the car or throwing the bags, claiming he placed them down. He argued that he was simply a protective father, a papa bear reacting to his son being trapped. But the judge was not swayed by his justification. She reminded him that regardless of his anger, he had no right to put his hands on another person's vehicle or to intimidate them physically. The judge looked at the evidence of the damage. There was a crack in the windshield and a scratch on the door. Wanda had paid a deductible of $250 to her insurance company to have the car repaired. She also had to pay for a new garage door opener after Lawrence took 95 cents. Her insurance had covered the rental car she needed while her vehicle was being fixed. After considering all the facts, Judge Judy reached her decision. She found that Lawrence's actions were a result of unchecked anger and that he was responsible for the damage caused during the kerfuffle. She awarded a judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $385. As the court adjourned, the weight of the moment lingered. Lawrence Block reflected on his regret, admitting that he had gone too far with his word and actions, driven by a misunderstood sense of protection. Wanda, though she had won the case, was left with the realization of how difficult it was to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The case highlighted a deeper, more systemic issue. It was a sobering thought that almost anyone could open a boarding house for vulnerable individuals without rigorous government oversight or specialized licensing. The burden of vetting these homes fell entirely on the families, who were often already overwhelmed. The story ended with a quiet but powerful message of advocacy. Wanda had fought for her niece not just in the driveway, but in the halls of justice. It was a reminder that while the law can repair a windshield or replace a remote, the true value of justice lies in the recognition of human dignity and the necessity of care for the most vulnerable among us. But relieved, ready to find a truly safe haven for Elizabeth, where the only thing being shared would be kindness and respect. The halls of justice often echoed with the weight of heavy hearts and the pursuit of fairness. But on this particular morning, the atmosphere in the courtroom of Judy Justice felt especially poignant. The sun streamed through the high windows, casting long, golden rectangular shadows across the polished wooden benches, where people from all walks of life waited for their grievances to be heard. Among them sat Wanda Lucero, a woman whose face etched a story of deep familial devotion and the weary resolve of someone who had spent a lifetime caring for those she loved. Beside her sat her sister, a woman who shared the same kind eyes, and together they represented the silent strength of a family bound by the shared responsibility of protecting a vulnerable soul. The case was numbered 3011, a simple designation for a story that involved complex emotions, the safety of a challenged woman, and a confrontation that had spiraled out of control on a quiet afternoon in San Bernardino. When the bailiff called the court to order, the room fell into a respectful hush. Judge Judy, a figure of unwavering authority and sharp intellect, took her seat at the bench. Her presence commanded immediate attention, her eyes scanning the documents before her with the parties gathered before her. Wanda Lucero was suing Lawrence Block, the former landlord, her niece, for property damage, an intangible but very real burden of pain and suffering. The story began long before the incident in the driveway. It started with a niece named Liz, a woman of 38 years who navigated the world with challenges that required constant support and a watchful eye. For a long time, Liz had lived with her mother, Wanda's sister. But as the years turned into decades, the mother realized that she was reaching a season of life where she could no longer provide the level of care Liz deserved. In March of the year 2022, the sister made the difficult and selfless decision to transition into a senior community, leaving Liz in need of a new place to call home. Wanda, stepping into the role of a primary advocate, began the search for a safe haven for her niece. The search was frantic and filled with the kind of anxiety that only comes when the well-being of a loved one is at stake. At one point, Liz was facing the terrifying reality of homelessness for a week after a previous housing arrangement fell through abruptly. During this period of instability, Liz contracted an infection that led to stay at a local hospital. It was there, through the instrumental help of a social worker, that they were referred to a facility run by Lawrence Block. It was a room and board for individuals with psychological disabilities. To Wanda and her sister, it seemed like a solution, a place where Liz could have a bed, meals, and a sense of community. Mr. Block's house was located in San Bernardino, California, at an address within the zip code 92404. It was a 5-bedroom, 2-bathroom house spanning approximately 2,000 square feet. While Mr. Block did not live there himself, he employed a house manager who was also a resident to oversee the daily operations 24 hours a day. The rent was set at $750 per month, and Liz shared a room with the house manager. For a time, the arrangement seemed to function, but beneath the surface, concerns began to simmer in Wanda's mind. She kept close tabs on her niece, visiting often and observing the dynamics of the house. The breaking point arrived on November 30th. Wanda had gone to the house to pick up Liz for several doctor appointments. As they were preparing to leave the bedroom, Wanda witnessed something that deeply disturbed her sense of morality and her hopes for her niece's environment. Liz opened her purse and flung several items of undergarments toward the house manager. Once they were safely inside the car, Wanda asked for an explanation. Liz admitted that they had been to a Walmart together, and the house manager's realization hit Wanda like a physical blow. Her niece, who was easily influenced and vulnerable, was being encouraged to engage in dishonest behavior by the very person tasked with her care. It was a final straw in a series of growing concerns. Driven by a protective instinct, Wanda decided that Liz could not stay another night in that environment. She returned to the house around 3 o'clock in the afternoon to remove her niece's belongings. She brought large, hefty bags and, with Liz's roommate present, began the process of packing away a life. The house manager called Mr. Block to inform him that Liz was moving out. At that moment, Mr. Block was at a community hospital, nearly 30 minutes away, interviewing a potential new client for his business. The news of the sudden departure, coupled with a later phone call from his son, ignited a fuse of frustration within him. While Wanda was packing, her son arrived to assist with the move. However, the situation turned into a standoff when Wanda, frustrated by her inability to retrieve a specific item from the garage, used her vehicle to block Mr. Block's son's car in the driveway. The item in question was a simple closed hamper containing various personal things. The garage was off limits to residents, a rule Mr. Block enforced to see pillaging the belongings of those who were moving out. When Mr. Block arrived home and saw his son's car blocked, his emotions boiled over. He felt his son was being held hostage in a sense, and his protective fatherly instincts, which he later described as a Papa Bear reaction, took over in a way that was far from rational. Mr. Block approached Wanda's car with an air of aggression. He was shouting and using profanity, his anger radiating through the air. In a moment of lost control, he reached out and grabbed the handle of the driver's side door where Wanda was sitting. He opened the door, not to communicate, but to vent his fury. Wanda, her sister, and Liz were inside the vehicle. Frozen in fear as the man they had once trusted for shelter stood over them, out of control. Mr. Block slammed the door, and in the chaos, Wanda claimed he hit her windshield and scratched the car. He then went to the back of the vehicle, opened the door, and removed the bags of Liz's belongings, allegedly throwing them into the street. The scene was a cacophony of raised voices and high emotions. After finally finding a way to maneuver his son's car out of the driveway by going over the curb, Mr. Block drove his own vehicle toward Wanda's car in a manner that felt like a head-on threat. In the quiet sanctuary of the courtroom, Judge Judy listened to these accounts with discerning ear, which showed the bag sitting in the back and the tense atmosphere of the afternoon. The judge, with her decades of experience, recognized the patterns of the boarding house business and the frequent lack of oversight that plagues such facilities. Judge Judy pointed out the legal and moral failures of the day. She admonished Wanda for taking the law into her own hands by blocking the son's car, explaining that one cannot legally prevent someone from leaving just because of a dispute over a closed hamper. However, her sharpest words were reserved for Mr. Block. She made it clear that no matter how frustrated he was, he had absolutely no right to put his hands on Wanda's car, to open her door and terrify the occupants, or to touch her personal property. The judge emphasized that someone in the business of caring for challenged individuals must possess a level of patience and self-control that Mr. Block failed to demonstrate that day. As the proceedings drew to a close, the focus shifted to the tangible damages. Wanda presented evidence of a $250 insurance deductible for the repairs to her car. She also claimed $134.95 for a new garage door opener that she alleged Mr. Block had taken. The total for these items came to $385. While there were claims for a rental car, those costs had been covered by insurance. Balance and Justice ruled in favor of the plaintiff for the amount of $385. The gavel struck, signaling the end of the legal battle, but the lessons of the case lingered in the room. In the aftermath, there was a profound reflection on the nature of care for the vulnerable. The dialogue between the judge and her colleague highlighted a systemic issue in society. It was a startling revelation that in many places, a person needs a license to give a pedicure, yet almost anyone can open a boarding house for people with significant psychological challenges without rigorous government oversight or licensing. The case of Lucero versus Block was more than just a dispute over a scratched car or a missing hamper. It was a testament to the necessity of vetting and screening those who are entrusted with the safety of the most fragile members of our community. Wanda Lucero, despite her errors in judgment during the heat of the moment, had been driven by a singular, noble goal: to find a safe and honest environment for her niece. The resolution of the court provided not just a monetary judgment, but a validation of the principle that every human being, regardless of their challenges, deserves to live in a place of peace, dignity, and true security. As the parties left the courtroom, the hope remained that the experience would inspire a greater commitment to protection and respect of all individuals within the social